Hey, it's Stacey. So let's be real, right? Sometimes the biggest obstacle between the life we want, the career we want, the things we want, it isn't the things that we normally throw up. It isn't our boss. It isn't the team. It isn't the economy in some cases. Sometimes it's us. It's you. And that's a topic I want to chew on a little bit. This concept of self-sabotage. So I'm Stacey Luces. I'm an executive coach and business strategist. And today I want to dive deeply into something that we hear about, we may see a meme about, we figure that may or may not relate to us, but definitely it is something that stealth mode sneaks up on us. And it can be in the form of procrastination that creeps up in front of us where we're about to finish something important and we put it off till the last minute. I'm totally guilty of that. It could be that voice in your head that whispers it's not the right time, or you're not right for this, or we're not ready for this. And it's saying yes also to things that disrupt the plan that you had for the week or the day. And so self-sabotage is not necessarily something that only happens to certain people. I think all of us in our little way experience this. It's just if it's getting in the way sneakily of you impacting and achieving the things that you want to achieve both personally and professionally, I really wanted to spend some time today and dig into that. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to talk about what self-sabotage really looks like, why we do it. And again, sometimes a lot of it is self-protection and sometimes it's just fear, the cost of ignoring it. There's always a consequence to decisions that we make, and no decision is actually a decision. I'm sure you've heard that before. And most importantly today, I want to talk about how we can start breaking free from this concept of self-sabotage, this concept of I'm not ready, it's not ready, it's not the right time, all of these flags that we throw up that hinders us from progressing, right? And so, yeah. For 25 years, I worked in corporate, and I left that high six-figure salary, wonderful title. At one point, I had a beautiful office on the 7th floor in the Capitol in Washington, D.C. If I strained my eyes really well, I could see, the Capitol itself. And over the course of these years, I've worked with hundreds of executives. And now as an executive coach and business strategist, I work with entrepreneurs, founders, nonprofit leaders, teams who experience self-sabotage in different ways. And it doesn't always have to be the team. Sometimes it is the leader who is not subconsciously not ready to scale. And it really can catch up to us. So yeah, I want to talk about what that looks like, right? Many think it's something dramatic and it's something that happens when we are not looking, but I'll tell you what it sounds like in every day. So for me, this is totally one, guys. It looks like procrastinating on something that can open new doors and spending a lot of time perfecting whether it's the speech or the presentation or the pitch deck or even the one pager, right? If you're doing your own marketing and stuff, that's what it looks like for me. And I'm sure some of you listening to this, maybe that's what it looks like for you. Sometimes it looks like saying yes to another project, even though you're drowning already. That one sounds terrible, right? Like, how can that even be self-sabotage? That sounds like doing the right thing. Well, it's self-sabotage because you don't want to disappoint your boss. You don't want to disappoint the team. You've already kind of done more than your fair share. And the impact of it on your other goals, maybe your personal goals or your relationship goals, that's what you're sabotaging. You're sabotaging your future health. You're sabotaging the promises that you made to your loved ones, if that's something that is important to you. And so there's kind of an ugly cycle to that where we are overextending on one front, and we've talked about that many times on this podcast, and shortchanging the other side of the spectrum, right? This is a very interesting one. It looks like perfectionism. And I'm sure some of you are like, well, isn't the whole goal just to have it be perfect, baked, set it, and let it fly? Well, if you're telling yourself, I'll launch this when it's perfect, only to watch other people do it really messy. And I think with the advent of social media and with the advent of, everybody being so transparent online, we now see just how messy some people are that are doing the thing. And they are learning real time, pivoting real time, asking for help real time, confessing just how messy the process is real time. And quite frankly, we love that. I mean, who amongst us hasn't seen that founder story where I know Amy Potterfield, I do online training modules, and I took her course, Course Builder. It's like a 2-month thing a couple years ago. And she has this beautiful story built around these reels and these mini videos that she did. She's been doing for over, 15 years, where she started in her living room, and her husband Toby was like holding up the little camera, and she launched her first course and made $297. And we find those stories compelling. We find them inspiring. We hold them up as things that make us really happy, right? And yet the thought of us doing that or following suit freezes us in place. And so if procrastination or perfectionism is holding you back from starting, it's also holding you back from progress, right? And that's where I think some of the juice is. And here's the kicker. Research shows, I like research. Research shows that procrastination affects 20 to 25% of adults chronically. That's not even like, oh my gosh, it just happened this week. No, it's chronically. And it's not because we're lazy. It's because we're fearful. Whether it's fear of failure or fear of success or fear of the unknown, one of those things is holding us back from moving forward. And at work, this costs you promotions, credibility, maybe even trust. At home, it may even create stress, resentment, missed moments. I know there are many executives, many leaders that I coach right now, and they are having challenges connecting and maintaining a healthy relationship with their now young adult or adult children, because those formative years where they were spent, chasing that metric of success professionally, they now have to figure out, oh my gosh, the fragility of the relationship that I have with my loved ones is so tenuous that we don't even know where to begin, right? We're having these surface level conversations, and it shouldn't be like that. And the thing with self-sabotage is because it's subtle, you don't always see it until the damage is done. And one of the biggest things we'll dig into is this concept of putting our health, putting our well-being, putting our mental sort of vitality on the back burner while we actively, frenetically pursue something else. So I want to dig into why do we do this? Because nobody sets out to self-sabotage. And even saying self-sabotage, it sounds so, what's the right word? Mysterious and like grimy, right? Like other people sabotage you. We think of the word sabotage as other focused, something somebody does to us. And so rarely do we think that we can sabotage ourselves. And it just sounds not very feasible. And so why do we do it, right? I'm going to give you a couple of reasons, and hopefully if this is you and you can see yourself in this, it makes this episode a little bit more juicy because we get into later on some strategies on how to navigate that. So yeah, here are kind of the big ones, right? Fear of failure. I talked about that a little bit earlier. If I don't try, I can't fail. If I don't try, I can't fail. But if you don't try, you also will never know, right? So fear of failure is kind of the biggest one where we will stop ourselves from actively pursuing the thing that probably is going to change our life. Another big one is fear of success. I just touched on that a little bit. I know that this one surprised me early on a couple of years ago when I sort of started playing around with the idea of, some people call it limiting beliefs or blocks. We hear a lot about money blocks or all those things, but these things are all built on this foundation of us really trying to protect ourselves from hurt, from instability, whether that's financial instability or emotional instability or uncertainty. And so it stems from the deepest, one would almost say, virtuous place within us, which is to keep us from harm's way. But as we get older and as we become more mature, we have to tell that sort of sometimes child self that made that rule that it's okay, that there's no lion in the den. You know what I mean? Like, we can handle bad things. We can handle stressors. We can handle these shifts in life that happened. I'll give you one. So I came in to record a podcast last week, and we had just had some really debilitating personal news having to do with a relative. I won't get into it yet, but I had found out kind of that morning, and I had my recording time, and I came in and I had no energy. I hadn't really processed either. I was just kind of on autopilot. And I had my notes all prepared, and it isn't what I'm talking about today. It was going to be something else. But I was going to push through, and I sat down with Dean here and Ethan, who are two of our producers in the studio. And we just started chatting, and I totally asked for grace because I just wasn't in the mood, and I had showed up late for the recording, which never happens. And so, it can be in any way, shape, or form, and I was going to push through. And that is a form of self-sabotage because I wasn't sort of acknowledging that I needed space, that I needed breath, that I was going to deliver by any means necessary an episode that probably would have landed flat because I was just not myself, right? And so fear of success, or what if people expect too much from me, or who am I letting down, will make us either push through and not be our best, but also stop us in our tracks. Another one is comfort zones. Ew, that sounds gross. I will tell you, your brain, my brain, our entire internal ecosystem is wired to prefer familiar discomfort over unfamiliar possibility. I will say that again. Your brain prefers a discomfort that is known to you, that's a routine for you, over doing something new that causes unfamiliar possibility. I think 80% of people experience that, right? And this part of you would rather keep you stuck. I'll use a job, for example. It would keep you there in a job that you hate because at least you know what to expect. At least you know what this toxic leader is going to do. At least you know what these coworkers are about. At least you know you'll have to 90% of the time work through lunch. At least you know, and you know, because you know these bad things and you honestly accept these bad things, you just fall into this rut. You fall into that status quo. And yeah, man, comfort zone. For me, it's Beyond the Quo. It will keep you locked in a cage of your own making. I always tell this fun story. I haven't told it in a while, but it's one of my favorite little anecdotes to share. It's about this beautiful nightingale. And, she is in this beautiful golden cage with all the bells and whistles. And she wraps her beautiful little arms around the bars of the cage and peeks her little beak out. And she looks at all the other birds soaring and flying in the sky. And she bemoans the fact that she's locked in this cage. And that if only life were a little bit kinder, or if only all these reasons why she should be out there, but she's not, right? And the camera slowly pans to the back of the cage, and the door to the cage is open. And oh my gosh, like when I saw that, I don't know, I just kind of sat with it for a long time. And obviously it affected me to the point where years later, I'm still sharing it. But it is a story and I've worked right now with maybe, scores of clients. And I always tell that story because a lot of times, just like that nightingale, our cage is open. If only we change our perspective, just change the vantage point, look at things differently, reevaluate this comfort zone, we won't be like this bird and miss out on all this life, right? Another big reason, so we've talked about fear of failure, fear of success, comfort zones, is conditioning. And that word rubs some people the wrong way. But we talk about this a lot. And a conditioning could be, I have to work hard to make money. Or I can't trust people when the going gets tough. Or maybe you were raised to play small so that you're not visible, because if you're visible and you fail or you're high up there and something happens and you have further to fall. So stay safe, don't rock the boat. That voice, those voices, those precautionary roadblocks didn't just come from, nowhere. They didn't just, it's been programmed into all of us, sometimes generationally, because it's what kept everybody safe. And it's our job, it's our responsibility. We hear a lot of people talking about breaking generational trauma. Gosh darn it, is your responsibility to figure out what those are for you, because they're not the same. And even if it looks and smells the same, it manifests differently in all of us, depending on our upbringing. But I know for me, one of the big ones is I have to work hard to make money. Or what do you think? Money grows on trees. So growing up in humble beginnings, I grew up in Trinidad, which is a developing country. And I always watched people struggle, right? Working 2 or 3 jobs. In fact, I worked 3 jobs to put myself through college. And that felt familiar to me. It felt familiar to me. And so now when things are coming to me easy, I second guess it. I'm like, oh shit, like when's the other shoe going to drop? That's another conditioning. That you think when things are going so well and so beautifully and magically aligned, there's a part of you that's anxious because you think the other shoe is going to drop and this quote unquote dream thing is not trustworthy. And then you will do things that will take you back into that comfort zone. And then you can prove yourself right and be like, yep, I knew it happened. Sneaky, right? Gross. So here's a stat that drives this home. 70% of people experience imposter syndrome at some point in their career. That's 7 out of 10 of us walking around, doubting our abilities, downplaying our wins, or waiting, like I just said, for that other shoe to drop. And imposter syndrome feeds self-sabotage. There's an episode I did with Dr. Kelly Kessler, where she talks about abandoning yourself. I will reference it in the notes, but it's a beautiful episode where Kelly gives us so many great tidbits on this concept of self-abandonment and how to navigate that, right? All right, so who cares? Yeah, so what? I procrastinate. Yeah, so what? I stay in this job I hate. What's the worst that can happen, right? So here's some hidden costs. Right? Because nobody walks around with a shirt that says, I am currently self-sabotaging, give me space. Here's the cost of ignoring this in our lives, right? And I'm going to break it up like I do. When you look at your life, there's this thing every good coach worth their salt does, which is, it's called the Wheel of Life. There are probably different names for it. But it's conceptually, imagine like a circle with these sections, quarters, thirds, sixths, whatever. It's like a pizza. And what it asks you to do is evaluate not only how much time you spend in different parts of your life, so your career, your family, your hobbies, your finances, your whatever, however you live your life. Generally speaking, most people have a few things worldwide that they care about. We care about our health and well-being. We care about our career. We care about our finances. We care about our relationships. How much time you spend in each of those quadrants, how much sense of urgency and goals you set towards these dictate sort of the quality of life that you have. And so a good rule of thumb is every quarter, evaluate where you are in reference to how you spend your time with some of these, right? So when it comes to self-sabotage in your career, if you are self-sabotaging, here's what some of those consequences are. You stay invisible, or you may even get overlooked for promotions. And here's the grossest truth I can give you. And we see this a lot on social media. People less talented than you, but more confident are passing us by. I'm sure you've seen people out there making a ton of money, living their version of their best life. And you're like, bro, I could do that. You sure can. Probably do it better. But you're not. When it comes to finances, some hidden costs are, so the American Association of University Women reports that women who don't negotiate their salaries, my gosh, and that's many of us, leave up to $1 million on the table over the course of their lifetime. That is freaking sobering. That's $1 million lost over the course of your lifetime. Not because you're not worth it, not because you didn't think you could do it, but because you stayed quiet. There's a story I'm going to tell. I have shared it on social media, but I don't think I ever talked about it here. I worked for a Fortune 100 company a couple of years ago, very well known, top 5 business consulting firm in DC. They are a global firm. And I found out, I was on a team with mostly guys, and one of them was leaving for another job. And I asked him what his salary was. And I was super young. Yeah, I was in my 20s. And he, very matter of fact, told me what it was. And it was $40,000 more than what I was making. And we had similar degrees, similar experiences. I would argue that I was probably doing more high-level work than he was, given the client that I had and the responsibilities that I had. And I was also working some side projects, doing proposal work and all of that stuff. And it gutted me. And I asked another person on the team kind of the same question, because now I was just like, wow, what is happening? I even had work experience because I put myself through college. He hadn't. And yeah, it was the same. It was even worse with the other person I asked. And I felt really lonely in that moment. I felt really small and insignificant and helpless. And I shook myself out of that zone. And I went at the time to salary.com. And I pulled a salary report. I put in my experience and everything. And it showed that given the curve, the salary, that bell curve of what somebody with my experience and so forth could be making, that I was on the 17th percentile, 17. And my colleague was on the 80th percentile. And I was so upset. And I called, I talked to my manager, and then called a meeting with one of the partners. And I kind of presented my business case that I really wanted my base salary adjusted. And I gave them 2 weeks. And after that 2 weeks, I kind of built a case, right? Like, here's what I was working on. Here was the value I was bringing for the company. Here's how much money I made, blah, blah, blah. And I gave them 2 weeks to kind of help me out. And at the 15th day, I called, and they had not even talked about it. And I don't know, that saying, when people show you who they are the first time, believe them, came up for me. And I was so let down, you guys, because I loved this company, actually. And so I posted my resume the next day and got a job offer the next morning because a client of mine knew me and had just won some work and they were looking for my skill set. And I turned in my resignation that week, my 2-week resignation, because the other company had given me an offer that was mind-blowing. And so I want to say to you that you got to advocate for yourself, but also don't leave money on the table. You know what I mean? Hopefully that story inspired some of you. I know for me, I still think about it and I was like, wow, that was really badassy, but I just couldn't live with myself if I didn't speak up for myself, and you got to make the hard decisions and follow through. Did I want to leave the company? Hell no. I had friends there. Some of my best friends now I met there, but they weren't going to do right by me. And so I had to leave. And so maybe that's the same for you, right? So yeah, don't sabotage yourself and stay quiet. Roll out. All right. And health, overcommitting, overworking can totally lead to burnout. Guys, you know this. I know this one personally, right? I self-sabotage nearly cost me my life. You can check out episode 1 to hear all about that. But your health is the first thing that goes. And then relationships, if you constantly say yes to others and no to yourself, listen, you're going to show up resentful. You're going to feel dismissed. You're going to feel unseen, drained, disconnected, overwhelmed. Insert all of the words here. All of the things we complain about on the inside. And that is going to erode the very people, your integrity and trust with the very people that you care about the most. And here's the thing too, right? When it comes to relationships, yeah, you could be a founder, the CEO, the chief, cook in the kitchen. And if some of your conditioning says that people have to always show up early, always leave really late, never say no, and you are driving your team and wondering why you have high turnover, and problems getting people to actually have good morale and show up for your clients and your customers the way that you want them to, that's on you. That is on you. And so managing that has far-reaching consequences, but also the self-awareness has to be there, right? So self-sabotage, what I'm trying to say is it's not only about work, it's about your life. It's about the quality of your life, living up to your true potential. And the more that you ignore it, the more expensive it becomes. Because trust me, bad health down the road, massively expensive. So in terms of money, energy, health, joy, insert all of the good things, there is downstream mega negative consequences to this thing that you say, is not that important. All right. So juicy part now, strategies. I always like to leave you with 2mm shifts that get you closer to the goals that you want. And some of these things may take some time, but my goal is that these are bite-sized sort of breadcrumbs that you can use today, tomorrow, this week, that get you incrementally closer to not only identifying what your self-sabotage beast is, but giving you the tools and the defense to actively get in there and have some positive traction in getting better. So one, we talked about this just now. If you don't have awareness, you're just rolling blind. What is the pattern? What is the pattern that you have? So write down 3 habits that you envision based on what I told you earlier in this episode. You envision apply to you. It could be procrastination. It could be overcommitting, or it could be perfectionism. What is your poison? Write down what your top one is, or your top 3. I would say push yourself and do 3. And ask yourself, what fear is this protecting me from? What am I scared is going to happen? That is the key that unlocks all of this, because then you can work through that. Because a lot of times that's built on something that happened in the past that probably no longer is relevant right now. So naming it is powerful because once you see it, there's no way you can unsee that. No way. All right, number 2. So that strategy was called kind of naming the pattern, gain awareness. Number 2 is interrupt the loop. I am a strategic intervention coach. I was trained with Tony Robbins and Chloe Madonis through their coaching program a few years ago. And they called it the Crazy 8 because you just keep going in this infinity of drama and never getting out of it. And if you don't know that you're in it, it just feels normal to you. There's also this 5-second rule to get out of the loop. I think this was made popular by Mel Robbins, and it's called this 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then move, do the thing. I know that's super popular, but that is really the quickest way to interrupt this loop. For example, send the email. If you've rewritten it 3 times, like just stop it, hit send, make the call before you talk yourself out of this. You guys, I hate the thought of asking people for something. And I don't know where that came from. I think as a child, I just didn't like to ask anybody for anything because everybody was so busy that I just tried to figure it out on my own. So now when I have to ask for help or ask for reciprocity, I just freeze. Ew, it's so gross. But definitely for you, I don't know what it is, but make the call before you talk yourself out of this. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Another one, and this is from my Tony training, is there's this, they call it the triad, where you, before any big event, and you'll see this kind of variations of it with like a power pose, it's psyching yourself up. Let's pretend you're a salesperson and you've got to make those calls, right? Or something like that. The first thing they say is get up and move your body. Literally do jumping jacks, run in place, take some deep breaths. And what you're doing is you're breaking up that sort of mode that you're in, the oh, me or my mode, or the Eeyore. Oh, what's going to happen? You just get that blood pumping through your veins, get your heart beat up. Give yourself, like, stick your tongue out at yourself in the mirror. Like, I know it sounds so weird, but you guys, it works. And then you start laughing, release some of that dopamine, get those endorphins. And then once you do that, close your eyes and stand kind of legs apart, arms on your hips, chin up, power pose like Superman, and envision the highest and best outcome of that conversation. Just envision it. Because even if you get 80% of that right, it's going to be worthwhile. And then open your eyes, couple deep breaths, and get back to it. That is how you break some of these patterns that we're in. So another big strategy number 3, is micro actions. I talk about 2mm shifts, right? Big goals overwhelm us. You guys, I did strategic planning for federal agencies. Hundreds of people had to follow this plan that we built with leaders, bringing together all of these disparate pieces of information into one cohesive whole. What made it successful is breaking them down, these big overarching goals, multi-year strategies, into tiny, doable steps, right? In the military, they call it an operations plan, whatever, courses of action, it doesn't matter. But big goals overwhelm you. Have a big goal, but ensure that you can break it down into manageable bite-sized pieces. So instead of write the book, I'll use that because I'm an author, and the way that I executed on my best-selling novel was 200 to 500 words a day. No wiggle room. That's not a lot of words. Most of the times I found myself writing way more than that, but it made it less intimidating. And then instead of maybe launch the business, maybe it's make the phone call. Maybe it's make that connection, right? So having these really tangible, smaller, incremental steps towards the bigger thing is super important. So number 4, gosh, I talk about this so much. You guys probably get sick of it, but boundaries, you guys. Boundaries leads to self-trust. I talk about having integrity with yourself. I talk about the fact that a lot of times we will have a health goal and give up on it even before we started. Yet, if there is someone waiting for us at the gym, or I talk about my friend Shelly, I wanted to walk every morning. There's a beautiful loop around the lake where I live. It's about 2.5 miles. And oh my gosh, if the wind blew differently, I wanted to opt out and sleep in. I would find every excuse not to go. And I said to Shelly, hey, do you want to walk like every morning with me? And she's like, yeah, let's do it. And I was like, damn it. But she would be there, and me knowing that she was at the end of that block where we said we would meet every morning, I got myself out of bed and we would walk. So I don't know what it's going to take for you to build that integrity with yourself, but a lot of times we will have integrity around the commitments we've made for other people. So maybe that's a way you can leverage that, right? Boundaries is also saying no early and clearly. Ew, who wants to do that? So I will say this, that a no today protects your energy for the yes that really matters. A no today protects your energy for the saying yes to the things that really count. That's a really, really powerful way to think about boundaries too, right? A script, if somebody is asking you to do something and I appreciate you thinking of me, but I can't take this on right now and give it the attention that it deserves. I appreciate you thinking of me, but I can't take this on right now and give it the attention it deserves. That is graceful, it's clear, and it's direct. And it sets you up to say yes to the things that really matter and are really going to improve your quality of life, right? And the fifth one, accountability. Remember I was saying somebody's waiting for me at the end of the block to go walk every morning? Tell someone your goal. When I first quit my job and started my entrepreneur journey a couple of years ago, I had met a fellow entrepreneur at a networking event. Her and I sat at the same table. And during that, I think it was like January. So what we were doing was goal setting. And her and I had similar goals to leave our corporate jobs that we were burnt out and sort of not fulfilled by, and do our own thing. And we became immediate besties, and we decided we would meet once a week to share our progress, our plans, our fears. Man, let me tell you, in the years that have passed, it's fallen off a little bit now because, things are busier for both of us. But her faith in me, my faith in her, our support for each other during those early formative years, invaluable. Having someone check in on you, right? Having someone stand up for you when you can't stand up for yourself, when all these fears are getting in your way, there's no price that you can put on that. And so have someone that you can be accountable to and share accountability with, right? And so when you are in community like that, sky's the limit. One of the things I see people doing a lot is saying yes to every meeting. I know one of the boundaries I put in place before I left corporate was if I got a meeting invite that was just a meeting invite with a bunch of people, I would ask, what are the objectives for the meeting? What were the outcomes? And what was my role? And it pissed some people off. It's like, no, you should just come. Why am I going to be there? And these are not horrible questions to ask. I think it's death by meetings these days. Like a lot of meetings could just be an email. In fact, some of them could be a freaking text, right? So that was one of the boundaries I've been working on most recently with a client of mine. She works for a finance conglomerate, and my God, her job is hectic. We think our job is hectic, but I would say within the last 6 months, not only did she get more done, but people have adopted this strategy also, and she's up for a promotion. Leading is not synonymous with drowning. drowning in overwhelm, drowning in deadlines. There are so many of you right now that go to 8 to 12 meetings a day, and then you get home, you got to catch up on email and your to-do list. When in fact, maybe half of those meetings were null and void, right? So bringing this all together, full circle, self-sabotage is not some kind of character flaw. It's not something that happens to other people. It is just a pattern. It is a pattern that we have all learned somewhere along the way. It's designed to protect us. But now in the season that we're in, you've got to understand that it's going to keep you stuck. It's going to hold you back from pursuing the things that you want to do. And the cost, as I've shown, is really high, whether it's your career, whether it's your health, whether it's your relationships, whether it's your innate sense of fulfillment and peace. There is a cost to not doing this, right? But the good news is these crazy 8 patterns can be broken. Just like that tiny little exercise before you go in to do your sales call or a big meeting or a big presentation, or in fact, start your day, break the pattern really quickly. And with awareness, with interruption, with boundaries, with accountability, all of these strategies we've touched on, you can't stop tripping yourself up. You can move into the power that is yours. You can reset some of these things that you have. And a big part of this is right-sizing your goals, like I mentioned, into bite-sized pieces, things that actually make sense for you and the life that you have. I know for me right now, we're going into a season where our elders are going to need so much more support. And especially when it comes to my husband and sort of my in-laws, I have to reset some of the travel that I thought I was going to do in order to support not only him, but my family. And so you having autonomy over that, knowing what to say no to, there are some things that I committed to a couple of weeks ago, months ago, that now have to shift. And I've got to get serious about my boundaries and my priorities and using that line. I appreciate you thinking about me, but things have changed and now I can't support you the way I thought I would. I'm going to have to own that and do it without and push through this feeling I have that I'm letting somebody down. Yeah, I'm letting them down, but I think they will be okay. And I don't want to let myself down and my family in this time that we surely and truly need each other, right? So in closing, I'm going to challenge you this week to pick one self-sabotage behavior, just one, whether that's procrastination, whatever it is, write it down, name it, and decide on one micro action that you're going to take to interrupt it. And the micro actions are whether it's naming the pattern, interrupting the loop, boundaries, accountability. And then when you do, I'd love to hear about it. You can DM me, send me an email. I don't even care. Comment on Instagram. I'd love for you to have this tiny little breakthrough, this tiny little aha moment and share it with us, because I will tell you, the minute we stop self-sabotaging, you don't just change your life. You kind of model courage for everyone around you. Remember that client I was just telling you about that suddenly had the wherewithal to push back on all of these meetings and ask for clarity? Now everybody's doing it. So she sort of set the tone in her organization for more effectiveness, more clarity, more outcomes, right? More success. And so everybody's adopted it. So you never know what your tiny little ounce of courage, what the implications of that is going to be. So if you're ready to take this deeper and you're done playing small and you are feeling stuck still, I invite you to take advantage. I do free 30-minute power reset calls. You can find me on LinkedIn at Stacey.Luces. You can find me on Instagram at the same handle. My email is staceyluces.com. And I do this work every day with clients. I do workshops on this. So reach out, let's talk. And I hope that this episode really gave you some clarity into something that is rarely talked about, but we do every day, which is self-sabotage, and how to not make that a bad thing. Just know that it's in place initially to protect you. And now you have some strategies as an evolved professional leader to make that happen. So you've already done the status quo. It's time to go beyond, and I will catch you next week. Thanks so much.